Susan! What the f? Uh-oh. Well, we're using a little more than a third cup. That'll be fine. I don't know what I'm talking about. Let's start that over. Who knows? More flavor, more comfort, more fun, more family, more joy, more color, and a little bit more spice. This is Good Mood Comfort Food. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Good Mood Comfort Food. Today we are making a delicious no-knead artisan bread from my cookbook, the Ambitious Kitchen Cookbook. This is my no-knead pumpkin cranberry walnut harvest bread. It is a mouthful, but it is a delicious one. It's full of spices and it is perfect for the fall. Plus, there's no kneading required. It was a recipe that I actually developed with my mom for my cookbook based on the no-knead seeded honey artisan bread that we shared last season. So if you haven't watched that, check it out. But this one is so cozy, perfect for fall. I like to take leftovers, make a grilled cheese sandwich after Thanksgiving. Any way you have it, butter or not, is gonna be delicious. So let's get started and make my no-knead pumpkin harvest bread. We're gonna start off by mixing our dry ingredients together. So for this recipe, we're using our trusty friend bread flour to make it nice and chewy and fluffy. A lot of times when you're working with pumpkin, because it has so much moisture, it can weigh down the bread, but this is absolutely delicious thanks to that bread flour. And then we're also using a little bit of this white whole wheat flour. I like to use both in this recipe. When I'm making breads, I like to use a scale just to make sure that my flour is measured properly and that it's going to bake up perfectly every single time. Now, I like using the white whole wheat flour in this just to make it a little bit more nutritious. It gives it this nice nutty flavor. And honestly, I always have it in my pantry. Oh. We're also gonna be adding in some cranberries right in here. Adding everything right into the flour mixture. All gets mixed. I don't know what happened. Adding everything right into this flour mixture, all gets mixed up together. What else do we have? Yeast. I always use quick rise yeast. Makes your breads rise faster, quicker. It's easier to use. You don't have to proof it. So that's going right in here too. This is completely optional, but a little bit of pumpkin pie spice. Just have a little bit in here from last season probably. Or cinnamon. It makes this bread just nice and cozy and brings out that pumpkin. We need some kosher salt and some oats to really make this a nutritious bread. When I was first developing this recipe, I wanted to put all of the nutritional ingredients I could find in my pantry together and make it into a bread that really works, but was still fluffy. And when you toasted it and bit into it, you felt like it was a bread that was gonna be good for you, but also just made you feel good from the inside out. I don't know what I'm talking about. Let's start that over. Next, you're gonna whisk all of the ingredients until they are combined. So this is a recipe that my mom actually started making herself. And then what I usually do is take my mom's recipe and then just start tweaking it to make it my own. All right, we're gonna set the dry ingredients inside and continue with the wet ingredients. So I'm also gonna measure this out. I'm gonna get my water. We are gonna start off with some water. Now I've also used milk in this recipe, but I feel like it doesn't really make a big difference either way. So use whatever you'd like. Water works perfectly fine. There we go. All right, we also have some pumpkin puree from the can. Of course, if you have butternut squash puree or acorn squash puree, that would also work. I'm gonna add that right in. What I love about this recipe is literally you mix all of the ingredients together, you toss it in a bowl, you let it rise for a few hours, and then you bake it up, and that's pretty much it. You don't have to sit there and knead it for 8 to 10 minutes. It's just good to go. Super easy to make ahead of time. All right, we're gonna give this a mix, and then we are gonna microwave this until it is pretty warm, similar to warm bath water. Okay, we are back. This is nice and warm, similar to bath water. Now we're gonna add our honey in. Honey is what sweetens this bread, but I've also tested this with maple syrup and it is very, very delicious. We're using about a third cup here. Uh-oh. Well, we're using a little more than a third cup. That'll be fine. Give that a stir. Add in a little bit of olive oil, about a tablespoon. Stir that up. And then you are gonna add the wet mixture to the dry ingredients that you mixed together earlier. You're gonna slowly mix this together until all of the dry ingredients have absorbed the wet ingredients. It smells like pumpkin pie. I love it. So my mom first actually developed this recipe, and then she had me try it a few times, and I was like, something's not quite right. So we started experimenting. Started adding oats, mixed up the flours, and I probably tested this close to 10 times before we said it was perfect. Oh my gosh. And you wouldn't think that there would be that much pumpkin in it, but somehow it comes out so beautifully fluffy. I absolutely love it toasted with a little honey butter on there, a little salt. Just screams fall. Now it's going to be pretty wet. So you can see, looks like this. And that's how we want it. So make sure you really get in there, get all of those dry ingredients mixed in well. Another fun part about this is that you could switch up the nuts. You could use pecans, you could use cherries instead of cranberries, or dried blueberries would be delicious. All right, this looks really good. So now all we're gonna do is cover this with a little bit of plastic wrap and a towel, and we will let this rise for about 2 hours at room temperature. Of course, if you haven't seen my tip yet and some of my other videos, I love to do this to make my breads rise a little bit quicker. Preheat your oven to the lowest possible temperature. Can't get this plastic wrap out. And then once the oven has preheated, turn it off, stick the bowl with plastic wrap and a towel in it, and then just leave the door slightly ajar, and then you can let it rise in your oven. What the f? Oh. There she goes.
Hooray!
I really love cling wrap. Bread has been rising for about 2 hours, so now what we're gonna do is take a Dutch oven and put it into a cold oven, and then we're gonna preheat the oven to 425 and heat up the Dutch oven while we get our bread going. Next, you're gonna grab a large sheet of parchment paper, pretty big. Put that on a clean surface, and then you're gonna dust it with a little bit of flour. Get your bread, which has risen beautifully. Look at that, it looks amazing. Look at those bubbles in there, and it smells exactly like pumpkin pie. So you're gonna put that onto your floured surface. Oh, nice and stretchy, look at that, you guys. You're just gonna fold it over a few times. You may need to get your hands a little bit floured. Just get some flour on my hands, and then just use that to fold it over. Probably like 3 or 4 times. And it smells so good. So, so good. You can use as much flour as you need so that it's not sticking to your hands. And just continue to pull it a little bit, fold it over. And you are going to shape it into a beautiful little dough ball. It really doesn't have to be perfect because it's gonna be so glorious once it comes out of the oven. That looks pretty stinking good. Now what we're gonna do is grab this piece of parchment paper and we're gonna put it into a large bowl. This is just a trick I like to use because we're gonna use the same piece of parchment paper and slide it into the Dutch oven in a little bit, so it prevents you from really doing the next step. I'm glad you asked if this bread has any dairy in it, because let me tell you, you can actually make this bread vegan. All you have to do is use that pure maple syrup. And fun fact about my book, I have a section called Make It Your Way, where you can switch things up to really make them your own. You wanna make it gluten-free? You can make it gluten-free. Not this bread, but maybe a different one. Vegan, dairy-free, there are a ton of options in my cookbook. So check it out, link is in the description below.
Where's the towel?
Who knows? Hi. The Dutch oven has been heating up in the oven for about 45 minutes now, so I'm gonna take it out and place the bread in. This is hot, so make sure that you're using your oven mitt. All right, this on there. And we are going to very quickly grab our parchment. Be careful when you do this, and slide it into the pot. And then you're gonna take some water and just brush the top of the bread. Ooh, sizzle. Just brush it really quickly, very lightly. You just sprinkle some oats on top. Gorge. And then, you know, because I'm a fancy little bitch. We're gonna score the bread. All right, lid goes back on. We're gonna bake this for about 25 minutes, and then we'll remove the lid and bake it again until the top is nice and golden brown. The bread came out of the oven quite a while ago. I pulled it out, I put it onto a wire rack to cool. It's been about 2 hours. You always wanna wait a decent amount of time before cutting into the bread, just so that it keeps the moisture in and holds its nice texture. So now we're ready to cut into it. This bread looks so beautiful, you guys. It's nice and soft and fluffy. You can see the texture is just amazing. And it smells like heaven. So I am ready to get into it. I have my salted honey butter from my cookbook. It's in the flavor Bible. One of my favorite things to slather on this bread. And then of course, I'm gonna hit it with a little Malden sea salt because that's just who I am. I'm a salty kind of girl. Susan! It's so good. Wow. Look at that. You see it? How beautiful this bread is. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what I call good mood food. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my videos, and be sure to pick up a copy of my cookbook, The Ambitious Kitchen Cookbook. It is linked in the description below. Cheers and happy baking.